Hey guys, what is up? Is Reaper Jinkai here, and I am joined by
Emerald?
so Emerald is my DM in our Pathfinder campaign, and I wanted to do this like a week ago, and then my headset fucked up, so that didn't happen. And then Emerald came over today. I'm like, want to be part of the series with me? So we're gonna be talking about our campaigns. We're gonna be talking about the more ridiculous parts of the campaigns, and we're gonna start from the beginning. And this episode 1 will be the first one I derailed, and then we'll move on and we'll pick out the more interesting parts. We'll leave out the
Sitting around town with one of the NPCs getting drunk off their ass constantly.
or the Axel and Gina flirting, and which might be fun to talk about in its own video to where that's what you're expecting.
Fair enough.
Since you play Gina and I play Axel. But
He is Axel, I am all of the NPCs.
so let's start by going over the characters. So I play Axel, who is a high drow who loves his city and wants them to become stronger. So he decided to travel to the upper worlds to gather information, gather new magics, new strengths and abilities to bring back to his people so that they can just be better at murdering.
I have two real NPCs that support the party. One is a Trox, also from the Underdark, who was raised as this kind of hard labor slave that became a barbarian over time. And he uses his skills for kind of anything he wants. His whole character is I was raised a slave, now that I'm not anymore, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want and nobody can stop me.
I think to kind of talk how we talked him into there was like when Axel left, he picked a slave from his family that he saw potential in, and he ended up grabbing Vesix. And then as they went on, Axel was kind of like, "Hey, he's got a personality. He's not as dumb as I thought he was." And they kind of became friends and drinking buddies and get into trouble buddies.
Yeah. Always. And the other character I play is a sorceress named Gina, and she was introduced as this kind of uh, character almost similar to that of Raven from the Teen Titans, where she had this attachment to demons through her bloodline because her father is Pazuzu. Um, so one of the things that she immediately warned the party about is basically, hey, if at any point I hit 0 hit points, I'm just going to steal the life force of everyone around me, and my dad's going to take over.
And at the point in the campaign we are in now, Axel and Gina are dating,
Yes.
which is really funny because I'm a drow and she's a high elf.
Yeah, high elf.
So it's really funny that those two ended up together. But Axel's whole attraction to her was, hey, that's a power my people don't have. And then he started to like her more as a person.
And then on Gina's side of things, at first it was very, oh god, it's a fucking drow. Um, but as time went on, Axel is the character here with the most personality. So,
That's fair.
naturally, she kind of grew more attached to him as time went on, and she realized, wow, I shouldn't be this racist. He's a pretty cool dude.
Pretty cool, but he liked to fuck with her a lot.
Did, but he fucked with her less than the other characters did. um,
Right. We'll tell this one bit because it's really funny. Right when our characters started to feel feelings for each other, there was one morning that uh ne- Neris bought coffee and brought it up for us. The last party member we'll get into for a moment. And Axel, being the asshole he is, grabbed a cup of coffee and sat down next to her and took a sip and he goes, "Ah, almost as fine as my black ass." which then caused her to go parkouring out the window.
Yeah, just wasn't dealing with this that early in the morning. Jumps out the window, uses I forget the name of the spell, but it creates this like disc under you that you can float on. And she just zoomed out of there. Wasn't dealing with that this early in the morning. I think she went and sat on like the church roof.
Yeah, so there's one of my favorite character interaction moments. Then lastly in the party we have Neris, who is a Sully, and for those of you who don't play Pathfinder or D&D, imagine like a genie, but instead of granting wishes, they channel elements.
They're a genie, but instead of being tied to one element, they're tied very weakly to all four. But I believe Neris specifically took a racial trait that makes her
I think, but
stronger in one element than the others.
yeah, I think ice,
Yeah,
because she uses ice all the time.
it's her bread and butter.
And she's a brawler, so very if you play, imagine a monk, only strength based.
Yeah, a monk with like the fighter BAB, and without the flurry.
So now that we got the party introduced, let's get into the story. So we were like maybe level 1, level 2. Gina hadn't even joined the party yet because at this point we wanted to see how the party would go. Without a spellcaster. And we make it to our first town, and at this point, Axel's main priority is payday. He wants to make money, because when he gets money, he can then be more comfortable to go buy the information that he wants to strengthen his people. He is lawful evil.
I believe everyone in this campaign is some version of evil, except for Neris, who's pure neutral.
She's chaotic at this point.
This is true.
Yeah. We dragged her down. She started at chaotic good, and we've dragged her all the way down to chaotic neutral.
Oh yes, it's been a campaign.
Yeah, it's been a fun ass campaign. So we get to this town, and we end up finding out that a farmer's daughter has been kidnapped by some cultists to be sacrificed to their god. And we're like, yeah, we'll go get her back or whatever. And
So the planned way this encounter was supposed to go was because the like leader of the party, this asshole over here, was a rogue. I had set it up so that the guards outside would have poison on them to make the fight a bit more, a bit more possible. Because what I had planned was there to be this ritual fight where you have to basically kill off enough cultists every round to stop them from summoning their deity. Failing to do so would spawn this. It was only going to be like a CR8, freshly awoken minor god, but it would have made the fight much more difficult because they were all like CR2 at this point, or character level 2 at this point.
it didn't go that way, did it?
It did not. So he took the poison I had given him and
Well,
found.
let's go through everything that
Okay,
happened
okay,
first.
fair enough.
Okay, so I stealth in to. So first of all, I have to explain how the door of their little cave works because that's very important later. There was one entrance to this place, and the door was kind of like it was about this wide, and then once you got up about that far, it would go out like this. And there was just giant boulders sitting in that crevice blocking most of the door. So you kind of had to either lift it up to get in, or you had to sneak underneath it. And the first problem we ran into as a party was our Trox, who's like what, 7 foot?
He is 7'8". He's
Yeah,
a size large.
yeah. So he's 7'8". He can't fit in the door. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna stealth in, make sure there's nobody there, and then you gotta lift it up, and you'll come in, and then we'll enter as a whole party. So I stealth in, get a really high roll, um, as a rogue I should. And they don't notice me, and I get a crit. And the first thing that's ever, well, this is the first time I've ever done it. Emerald uses a crit generator to see
Yes.
what happens. I got it to the crit generator, I got him in the throat and made it that he could not speak, so he was now silenced.
For like 1d6 days or until someone passed a DC 20 heal check, which the cultists, by the way, are a race of, I believe they were kobolds.
I
So,
know that you said that, I remember they spoke Draconic
oh no, so they would
and,
have been lizard folk.
yeah, lizard
So
folk.
they were lizard folk. So they're not, you know, very
Healers.
smart. um,
so So right there for how he ended up wanting this to go, that was the first big fuck. Because if he had just called out for help, they would have started the ritual there, and then the fight would have happened how he wanted it. So instead, we end up killing him before he can call for help or signal anybody else that somebody's here, and we get the Troxin. Then two people come walking down the hallway. His second chance for people to call for help. The Sully goes up against the wall and blends in using her elements.
uses the ability of Earth to kind of coat herself gently, gently enough to blend in, giving her a small stealth buff, but not enough to like cement her to the wall.
The Trox, using his burrow ability, decides to hide underground. And then this leaves poor little Axel out in the open by himself. What does he do?
So Axel asks if the cave has stalagmites, and I go, "Sure." I don't see how that's relevant. So he's like, "All right, can I acrobatics onto the stalagmites?" Sure. He jumps up onto the stalagmites. I have him roll an acrobatics check and then I think a dexterity to make sure he doesn't break it on grabbing on. He rolls like a above 15 and then a 19. So I'm like, fine, you're sitting on this stalagmite on the ceiling, waits for them to come under him, drops down to attack, crits one.
No, I dropped the stalagmite first.
Oh, did you? Okay.
So I drop his stalagmite onto them,
Uh,
knocking them both unconscious. And then I dropped down, got a backstab. I don't think it was a crit, but it didn't
coup
matter.
de grace.
Yeah, I got a coup de grace on one, and then I just slit the throat of the second one and looted them. And at this point, I remember player to DM, he goes, fuck, I'm gonna have to change this. I'm not used to my players using the environment.
Right, it's a situation of I'm used to another group of people I campaign with, a GM, usually just uses brute force or they try to diplomacy their way out of problems. I don't think about how you're gonna use the environment to deal with shit. So I'm like, all right, this has to be changed a little bit. So I'll have the ritual chamber, kind of fixed up a bit. There won't be, random rocks sticking out of the ground and things for him to use against me. And that's fine. So the next problem is they come up on this door. Now, I was right there. I almost had him. Where the Sully character, Ruby's character, Neris, almost just walks in the door without even thinking about it. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
And I stop him.
And then he opens his mouth like, wait, it might be trapped. I'm like, no, no, no.
So I roll a search for trap. And there's a fireball spell on this door, which would have killed us all. Besides the Trox.
Who is underground. And basically, what that would have done is allow me to go, okay, the Trox is still alive. I can grab the characters, bring them back to town to be revived, and that'll give me time to reset up this combat. No.
So I look at the Trox and I go, we don't have to touch this door. Burrow underneath it and get us up on the other side. Because I was like, they have a fireball spell on this fucking door. There's something important behind it.
So the Trox is like, okay, I see no problem with this. Burrows a hole under the wall to get everyone inside. And At this point, I'm like, all right. So now I have this problem because that's where they were holding the farmer's daughter. The cage with the farmer's daughter, and then the mage who had set up the trap on the door. So he doesn't even get a turn.
Well, no, yeah, well, yeah, no, that wasn't the mage that set up it. He
Was it
was
not? Okay.
with, I remember this fight very well because I enjoyed it so much. But, there was a mage and two normal guards in there. And Neris and Vesix went and took on the two normal ones, and I stealthed behind the mage and I crit him. This time cutting his back leg. Um,
Causing exponential bleed damage.
and I left him on like 1 HP, and it said he took 1d4 bleed damage each turn as he's channeling a spell. So at the beginning of his turn, he just dies from bleed.
Uh, and the two guards survive the round, but because they're in the room with the door that's still shut, calling for help wouldn't do anything. No one's going to hear it. So I would just have the guards try and knock out Vesix, who, being a Trox, has the frenzy ability. So I'm like, alright, if I can just hit Vesix, do some damage, then I can trigger frenzy and then have Vesix wipe the party to go take them back to town. Of course, one of them misses, and one of them only hits for 1 damage because they don't get any strength modifier. They're lizard folk.
And I think
Vesix is a barbarian.
he had
He gets
damage,
DR.
so he took no damage.
So frenzy doesn't trigger. And I'm just thinking like, oh my god, this sucks.
So we kill those two. And then he had trapped the cage, but
Yeah.
being a rogue, I rolled my finagle ability and I got her out of the cage no problem.
So the way the trap was supposed to work was, alright, fine. If you're gonna derail my encounter, I'm gonna kill the fucking the reason this quest exists. So it was going to be, if you opened the cage without disabling the trap, it was going to be spikes from the bottom. We're just going to come up and kill the poor girl.
Actually, I think we had Nara's melt a hole in the side of it because that wasn't opening it and it didn't set off the
Yeah.
trap. And then she just walked out and he was still like, fuck!
So I'm just sitting here like, alright, fine. Alright, I gotta be more clever with you guys. Fine. Fine.
So he gets the mage who's like, what?
CR8 mage, just enough to get access to
Fireball.
the 3rd level spells for Fireball. She had 1 cast a day of Fireball. So I was like, fine. Just go to party wipe, have the Trox bring them back because he'll survive. Again, we'll try this again because now we have a character who CR8 has a just metric fuck ton of hit points. So you can't take them down before their turn starts.
So let me tell this one because it's great. So we hear her yelling at other people outside the door because she sees the hole. And he's like, okay, so she's going to come in, wipe the party, we'll reset this, they'll keep the girl, and we'll reset it. I turn and look at the Trox. Well, I look at the DM and I go, hey, is there like a table or something in here? And he goes, yeah, there's a table. And I look at the Trox and I go, pick up that table? And he goes, okay. And whip it through that door. and I remember seeing your face, and you're like, and it was just like he asked for something completely reasonable, and it turned into bullshit. Because for those of you who lost track why that turned into bullshit, the fireball spell on the door activates when the door is opened or messed with. So by whipping the table through the door, we set off the fireball spell.
And so I have to roll the fireball spell for the CR8 lizard folk mage, killing the mage instantly.
You had a ring of You had to ring that let her stay on 1 HP if she was knocked under 0.
Oh, we killed her guards instantly. That's what
Yeah,
it was.
her guards died
Killed her guards
instantly, and she was down on 1 HP. And the trucks got hit by the fire spell, and we had all moved back into the back of the room because we're like, I want to get caught in the blast radius. So who's the first person the truck sees? This poor mage, who's now prone from the explosion.
So the Trox goes to attack because of frenzy, and I had made a special ruling because it's a Trox barbarian that anytime rage or frenzy triggers or is activated for the case of rage, it triggers the other one. Just because I feel like those abilities are similar enough that having one open without the other didn't make a lot of sense. So enters frenzy, therefore enters rage. He's getting like +6 to his already like 24 strength. Crits on this poor mage at 1 hit point, and I'm just like, all right. So he just grabs her, in his 2 arms and just tears her in half. Doing over 30 damage to her one remaining hit point.
And so now, if you remember, as Emerald mentioned earlier, that first guard had poison. And so did all the other guards we killed. It wasn't quite like poison though. It was like if you've ever read The Ranger's Apprentice, it was like I think they called it warm weed. So when you put it on your tongue, it would heat up your tongue and it became very addictive. But in large doses, it could kill you. So we had found that, and we had like 2 pounds of it. And Neris was collecting it all because she's an alchemist and she wanted to mess with it. So we knocked out Vesix with non-lethal damage to get him at 0 unconscious.
So the way that was done is the rogue snuck up on him, and because and of course, so he doesn't say anything. He's just thrashing about, like hitting walls and anything that moves in his vision. And the rogue manages to basically go up behind him and stab him somewhere that's non-lethal, just enough to cause him enough.
I
pain to knock him
no,
out.
Neris took care of this one.
Was it Neris? Did Neris go up and knockout punch? Actually, was that what it was?
She didn't have that yet. She just said non-lethal, punch to the face, knock you out.
So
yeah, so
the
that
Trox is knocked unconscious. That's how the frenzy is stopped to save the party.
yeah, after the fireball, you had like 5 HP. It wasn't that big a deal. So at this point, me and Neris still haven't taken any damage, and we were told there's a lot of cultists left. But they didn't come running to the explosion. I think at this point you're like, it's so derailed, just let them have their win.
Well, what it's happened is once they heard the explosion, they were going to be starting their ritual. So I was like, all right, fine. You're going to get there, but because of the way you've done it so far, the ritual will already be, half over by the time you get there, causing this to be a much more difficult encounter. They never go to the ritual chamber. Spoiler alert. They beat this encounter without ever actually going to it.
Yeah, we had the sacrifice. Without the sacrifice, they couldn't do the ritual.
So yeah, what they were going to do is start the ritual and then send people to bring the sacrifice. Or once the party attacked, well, hey, we've got 2 new sacrifices here.
Yeah. So while we roll a medical check, get Vesix back on his feet, and I look at Neris and I go, hey, because we had done some exploring before, and yeah, once I say this, you'll know where this is going. He didn't know where this was going, but we had found their supply room, and I looked at Neris and I go, hey, can I get some of that poison? He's like, how much? I don't know, like 8 ounces. So he gives me 8 ounces, and I go, I'm gonna roll a strength check to see if I can get this up into like a powder.
I go, sure, go ahead.
And I rolled a nat 20. And he goes, well, instead of powder, you get paste. I go, that's perfect.
I'm like, all right, he doesn't have craft alchemy, so he doesn't do it the way he wants, where it powders, which would make it way easier to use as a weapon. But he gets a paste. You know, it's still usable for like coating your blade or,
Which is where his mind went.
Right.
And I go,
and then
I look at him and I go into the stock room and drop it into their water supply.
So he enters the stock room, and this is where I see where his plan is going. And DM to player, I go, fucking asshole.
So I drop all the poison into their water supply, and I mix it in there. And I could only imagine as a DM at this point, you were like, well, one person would go get a drink and they'd keel over dead and they'd kind of just ignore it.
So I was like, all right, fine. So they're gonna get a few free kills on this before coming back, the next day or whatever, once Vesix is awake, and it'll be fine. But what happens instead is, so the rogue is like, all right, we've done what we need to do. Let's all retreat for the day so Vesix can heal. And I'm like, all right, finally, I can reset this encounter. It'll be fine. Everything's gonna be fine.
So I've poisoned them. And I'm like, okay, at some point they're gonna figure out this water is poisoned, and we have a problem. You remember how I said that door was important? So we had healed Vesix back up enough that he could move and do normal actions. So I looked at him and I said, I want you to destroy that door. And his thought process goes to, yeah, I'll have him destroy the boulder. That's not that big a deal. And he goes to go do it. I go, no. He goes, what? I want you to destroy the sides of the door enough that the boulder just drops and is pinned there. Like, no amount of these guys pushing it is gonna do a fucking thing. It's just stuck there.
So what he does is, using the burrow ability, he basically just digs into the sides of the wall to create that kind of crevasse the boulder will fall into. And at this point, I look at him like, so your plan is to just starve all of these cultists?
And then I look at him and go, no. My plan is their water supply is poisoned and they're going to die from the poison.
So that was the first encounter. There was very little combat. The combat that happened was mostly just, hey, I exist, you're dead now. And I was like, all right, the campaign's going to be interesting. So the next encounter is they've gone back to the village.
We should explain how, because you explained to us that your original plan was after we left, they were going to be super pissed off that we ruined everything like this, and they were going to come and attack.
Yeah.
But with the way we left, they can't. They're all dead, which is where this second encounter comes in, to where how he's like, okay, I gotta come up with something new. I fucked this one up too.
So I'm like, all right, fine. They're lizard folk. So they lived in this mountain range. I'm assuming that they would have had to have some kind of a farm, right? Food. So I'm like, all right, fine. The next day, they've brought the farmer's wife back, gotten paid. We had some shopping for new equipment. And the next day, the guards are going crazy when they wake up. They're like, all right, let's go see what's doing. He specifically says, all right, guys, payday, second time in a row.
I'm like, payday day 2.
So I'm like, all right, the guards are going crazy. He walks up and tries to diplomacy, to see what's going on. Something we should mention, he also wears this kind of cloak to obscure his race.
So I wear a cloak that kind of the hood comes down to here. So, like, you can see my eyes, but it's so shadowed you can't see what I actually look like.
Just, because he's a drow and there would be a lot of him being stabbed. Drow.
Plus, there's light sensitivity and stuff like that, and that helps with it.
But no, so yeah, he goes up and is like, hey guys, what's wrong? How can we help? And he says that these 3 trolls are attacking. Now, trolls, mind you, are a CR 6 creature. They're all level 2. and there's 3 of them.
So, his goal at this point was, the short of it was to go find Gina. Because
Yeah.
Gina is an elemental attacker. She can hit him with fire, she can hit him with acid, and they can't regenerate that. Because if you don't know, trolls regenerate health unless it's done by fire or acid. So, what'd I do, Dylan?
So instead of that, forget how you lured them. You lured them closer.
Well, no, I didn't lure them closer.
Do not. I don't remember the encounter enough. I just remember being
Okay.
pissed off that you took out 3 CR6 creatures basically by yourself.
Without rolling a damage die. So, okay. So, we were told at this point they were kind of mild, but they were out in the field, like picking up cattle and pigs and just like swallowing them whole. And I turn and look at Nessus and go, do we have more of that poison?
Oh god, yes. That's right.
And
That's right.
and she goes, yeah. And the DM goes, the poison you have would not be powerful enough. I go, oh, well, okay. You're an alchemist, right? Yeah. Can you increase the potency of this poison?
And at this point I go, oh shit. Should have just let him try it and then tell them it wasn't good enough. Then they would have wasted it, and then I could have my encounter.
So, he increases the power of the poison. Well, I think he was going to go do that either way.
At some point, yeah, but then this encounter would have been over with, and I would have had my one victory.
You haven't had many victories with me in this campaign. I derail more things than I intend to.
Because
to be fair, after the first one, I looked at you and I said, if I'm ever derailing something and you really want it to go that way, just like shoot me a text or something that the other two don't know, just being like, hey, don't.
chill out for a hot minute.
But so I get this poison and I go walking up to the gate and the guards are like, if you go out there, you're gonna die. And I'm like, want to bet 50 gold on that? There you go. Sure, you'll be dead. You won't pay us. We'll eventually go out there and loot your body. And I stealth out the gate. I stealth right up to 2 of them. Now, I felt bad because of the first encounter. Because I had enough poison, I could have poisoned all 3. But no. I go up, I get right up next to him, and I put some salsa on their pigs.
Yeah.
And the first one picks up the pig and just drops dead.
So the reason that happened is I rolled the fortitude save, which was still possible for these trolls. They're not pushovers at any rate.
But I think you rolled a 1.
I rolled a 3.
Yeah, so pretty fucking close.
Right.
And then the second one resisted it the first time. And then I just kind of followed him to the next pig. And and that time he failed and they dropped dead. And I walk back into town. Get my 50 gold from the guards. After like, what the fuck? And grab the rest of the party. And we go out there and 3v1 a troll.
So he is regenerating 10 hit points every time his turn starts. Because none of us have the right element except Neris with a d6. So it's just not enough.
And I don't think Neris ended up hitting him once.
She hit him like twice.
No, because I remember the end of the encounter and she was super pissed. Because she felt useless.
But no, yeah, so the encounter goes by. The troll is trying, but just not enough. So he dies, and I'm like, all right, fine, fuck.
So, the greatest part about this next part that got, well, possibly derailed. I don't know what you were planning. It might have just been a gag thing. Um, Neris gets pissed. And she walks over to one of the ones I poisoned, hops on their chest, and just starts punching him in the fucking face. And he wakes up. So I don't know if it was like a plan to where it was gonna be like, okay, well, the poison knocked him to 0 but didn't kill him, or if it was just a gag thing.
So what it was at first I was like, fine, fuck it, they're dead, and then Neris starts jumping on and beating the shit out of one, and I'm like, you know what, Neris, you felt useless the whole time. I'm gonna have your random outburst be,
Useful.
life saving.
So she ends up killing off the other two. And yeah, that was like our what, first day of the campaign?
Yeah, that was the first session.
That was his first time ever having me as a player, and he realized pretty quick this isn't gonna go how my other campaigns go.
Neris is actually one of the people I campaign with a lot. So, them being in the campaign, I figured, well, I can always kind of fall back on Neris to pick up what I mean for things like quests when I kind of misspeak, but they've been around me long enough to know what I mean over what I say. Neris helps me in no way. Just leaves me to the wolves.
Yeah,
about how Sean is.
yeah, because we'll get into another stories. That's the end of this episode for this story. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I still think back to some of these and I laugh. I hope you do too.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious.
But there are times and in other stories you'll we'll probably bring it up then, but there will be times that Emerald will be like, okay, I said this. And then I go, okay, you said that, so this happens, right? And he's like, fuck, that's not what I meant, but that's what I said, so yes.
um, the next adventure they go on is where this happens particularly bad, where I misspeak, and instead of giving him this rare magic item I wanted to for a rogue, I ended up accidentally giving him an artifact.
And I love it.
Because it was supposed to be a cloak of whatever, I forget the name of the actual magic item, which just gives +5 to stealth. It's just supposed to be this basic bitch cloak. It's like 4,000 gold. Just helpful. It's not, game breaking. I accidentally give him, because of what I say, the Cloak of Phasing, which is an artifact level item that allows you to use Ethereal Body for I think 1 minute a day per character level.
Yeah.
Which is a really broken ass spell.
As a rogue.
And yeah, he still has that fucking cloak. You do not understand how many times I've been tempted to send a caster after them, just as a throwaway villain who's gonna get immediately slaughtered, just to cast Dispel Magic and nuke him.
But so I think the biggest reason why you haven't is because I realize it's a broken item, and I try and not use it in every fight. Yeah. I don't fall back on it.
You really only use it for fights that you are already winning, but you just kind of want the style points.
Yeah. But with that, someone is home. We are going to wrap up this episode here. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good one. That's my boss.